Expenditure priorities. If we look at spending, it tends to be quite high in the region. This is especially true among the GCC countries, where it is significantly above the emerging economy average, and approaches 55% of GDP in some countries. While the size of government depends on societal preferences, a high level of spending can easily outstrip the capacity to raise revenue. Many countries are indeed taking steps to contain spending. But this is too often based on across-the-board reductions or ad hoc cuts. A more strategic approach that protects the poor and the productive capacity of the economy is preferred. Let us now consider the composition of spending. The priorities for sustainable and inclusive growth include public investment, but also areas such as health, education, and social protection, areas where spending tends to be low in the Arab countries. In other areas, such as energy subsidies and public wage bills, spending is high. There is really no excuse for the continued use of energy subsidies. They are extremely costly, averaging 4.5% of GDP among oil exporters and 3% of GDP among oil importers, despite lower oil prices. They lack transparency. Subsidies are often implicit and off-budget. They are vastly inequitable, favoring the wealthy who consume a lot of energy. Perhaps worst of all, they are subsidizing environmental harm at a time when we need to go in the opposite direction to protect the planet and people's lives, health, and futures. What about the public wage bill? I appreciate that government jobs can serve as a significant social safety valve. Yet when the public sector supports every fifth job, this comes with tremendous costs for fiscal sustainability, for the development of a dynamic private sector, and for governance. Such challenges are not unique to the Middle East. Many countries around the world have faced the need to reform their large or rapidly growing public wage bills. Careful design of reforms allowed some countries, including Ireland, to reduce its public wage bill by 4 percentage points of GDP. We look forward for Robert Watt, one of the key architects of the Irish reform, to share its lessons. Ultimately, the common good is ill-served by a system of patronage that hurts productivity and heralds privilege, by the corruption that comes from putting cronyism ahead of capability. This system disposes of good talent, and it reduces incentives to invest in skills and knowledge, the drivers of long-term growth. It can magnify the sense of dissatisfaction, distrust, and resentment, and it is ultimately self-defeating. Finally, the current pattern of spending remains inefficient across different sectors, including in health, education, and public investment. High wage bills have failed to improve the quality of public services. Nor is public investment delivering in line with expectations, as shown by several public investment management assessments. All of this leads to subpar social outcomes. Life expectancy in the Arab countries is about 10 years below the OECD average. School enrollment is still not universal, too many girls are still being kept at home, and student performance on standardized tests is among the lowest in the world. The poverty rate is relatively high and inequality remains a concern.